This is Uncommonly Remarkable. We have surprisingly casual discussions about the lives and notable accomplishments of community leaders, entrepreneurs, and everyday folks like you and me. Think of this podcast as an opportunity to learn something new and to pick up on an entrepreneurial tip or two through open conversation. I'm Artis. I'm a doctor of optometry and the chief medical officer for My Eye Doctor OD. Though we will inevitably touch on topics within my area of expertise, the opinions and conversations held here are separate from my work with My Eye Doctor. Welcome to the show. What if the real power of AI isn't about replacing jobs, but about helping you do your job better, faster, and with less burnout? Today on Uncommonly Remarkable, I'm joined by Paul Malott, corporate procurement veteran turned AI strategist, automation expert, and author of Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine. From its early days buying cutting-edge tech for the automotive industry to now building smarter business systems with no-code tools, Paul has a front-row seat to the evolving relationship between humans and machines. We talk about the real risk and rewards of AI, how small and mid-sized companies can start automating today, and why flexibility, not perfection, is the key to thriving in the future of work. Whether you're a founder or freelancer, or someone just trying to stay ahead of the curve, this one's for you. Ladies, gentlemen, all you remarkable people, please welcome Paul to the show. Paul, welcome to the show, man. I'm very excited to have you here. I think we've got a lot to talk about from the context of AI and its use in everything that we do, whether it be when you go see a doctor for an appointment, or you're deciding that you're going to write a script, or you're trying to decide on how to write your essay. People are using AI for a variety of things, but I think we're only really scratching the surface. And to talk to someone who's kind of gone the extra mile and learned a lot more about this than me is really, really exciting. So welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on. I'm a big fan of the show. Pleasure is all mine, trust me. And you're right, AI and me right now are synonymous with probably dirty. I'm pretty dirty with it right now in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different industries, right? And it's amazing how much AI and just applying it can support these industries and the complexities that it brings too, though, right? So it's a really awesome topic to talk about, and I'm happy to be here talking to you about it.
Well, it's always interesting to understand how you got to where you are. Most of us have a journey that takes us up and down and around. We don't just land where we're going to be. So Can you talk a little bit about your background and maybe bring us up to speed of where you are today?
Sure. So I'm a procurement professional. I spent 20 years of my career, actually, my first 20 years of my career, developing myself as a corporate professional that you could imagine, wearing the suit, walking through the downtown Chicago or downtown New York, right? That's what I wanted to be. And I aspired to be that from a very early age. And so, being a driven folk like you and I are, we achieved that some way or another, right? And procurement was really interesting to me because supply chain. In supply chain, there's a variety of issues, not just material issues, but cost, right? Every company has a cost constraint, whether they believe it or not. And cost tends to be that laser focus of a lot of the leadership team. And when cost is under the radar, you as a buyer, you as a procurement manager, a procurement agent, you're accountable and responsible for your supply chain, right? And their impact on your cost, your bottom line on your business. And so you start acting like a mini CEO. And as a mini CEO to 50 suppliers in a supply chain, that can be pretty stressful, right? I enjoyed the stress. I think a lot of people really strive in that and thrive in that chaos. And I felt like I was one of those folks. But there's certain frameworks that you operate in when you're working in corporate America, when you're working in whatever industry bubble. And, it took me that 20 years to realize that maybe the industry of automotive wasn't right for me. Maybe my ideas and my problem solving needed to come out in a different way, right? And that manifested itself in getting shit canned, right?
Oh, wow.
And it doesn't mean that, and a lot of people, these unfortunate things happen to people, right? Who are very capable. We just saw I'm sure plenty of folks in the U.S. government that are more than capable and did their job 100% perfect, on the wrong side of the coin, right? But it opens up doors too. And the door it opened up for me was the realization that I have a value add that is unique. I'm technologically capable, excuse me, because the last 5 years I spent in this advanced purchasing group buying things like augmented reality heads-up displays for cars. Sounds super cool, and it is really cool when you think about it, like a Pokemon Go for a windshield inside a vehicle.
Yeah.
How, I can know where my KFC is and my McDonald's, and I can see them. And when you're buying those things, you have to get really intimate with what it takes to make them, right? And the cost. So that knowledge that I gained was transferable into the digital world, right? The artificial intelligence space, digitization, business 4.0, procurement 4.0, whatever you want to call it, right? Data. So I figured out, hey, my process orientation with my accountable attitude, my responsibility for those suppliers that I had to represent, it means I can do this myself, right? Let's go out and see how my framework applies to the world. And through that, I said, okay, well, one of the ways you got to do that is by maybe going out and being able to call yourself a doctor. So I'm a doctoral candidate in business strategy, part time
Yeah.
at the U of M. And what that does is reinforces, theory to practice and really kind of acts as my guide when I'm sticking my nose in this shit, for lack of a better term, right? Trying to keep my hands out of it. It acts as my guide towards, are we doing the right thing philosophically? Are we doing the right thing, ethically? Are we ensuring we don't have bias in there? Are we thinking strategically as we're implementing AI, right? Are we considering people? Are we considering all this? So really, really long question or really long answer for a very short question. But, the reality is I finally had that epiphany where I have a certain value to give that maybe I'm giving it in the wrong place, right?
Well, that's fair. That's fair. So you don't know this, but I am a car and automotive kind of super geek, right?
All
So
right.
I knew you'd been in procurement. I knew you'd been in Fortune 500 companies. I did not know specifically it was in the automotive world,
Yeah,
and
rock and
so
roll.
that's a whole other conversation for us because I find automobiles absolutely fascinating and all
Hmm.
the technology that goes into them. But I think you're exactly right on having to really think about the application of AI in what it is that we're going to do. And there's a lot of
Hmm.
things that you have to think about because technology for technology's sake is not necessarily the best use of the technology, right? And
Hmm.
when it comes to people like what I deal with in healthcare, there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're trying to make sure that you're not overexposing patient data, that you're getting good
Hmm.
outcomes, that you are not only sharing what you need to share. And so I agree with you, having to really consider all of those pieces, including the ethics of it all, is important.
Yeah, 100%. And you bring up, well, one, it's awesome. You're a car geek because we definitely need to connect on a different call here. There's a lot of cool stuff going on in the automotive world with technology, but considering what we see today on the news, on the social media, the amount of AI tools that are available, the amount of things that we call AI that may not be AI, the amount of new companies that are coming out that are artificial intelligent oriented, right? I mean, a staggering percentage of new companies that are going public have AI in their name, and that can be really misleading, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, you mentioned it. AI is a tool, right? And the tool is neither good nor bad in and of itself, right? It does nothing. It has a purpose. Generally, the purposes are good. I mean, to make money in a way, but they serve something that's good if used in the right way. But the point I'm making here is that the tool itself, in a stoic fashion, needs to be, it's how you use it as a person, it's how you
Yeah.
use it as a company that gets you the impact, right? And it'd be like picking up a hammer and me thinking I'm a carpenter, AI right now is it's an interesting technology because I think that that risk of Dunning-Kruger effect, where you're overconfident in your competence in a tool, right? I think AI exposes us to that risk big time.
Yeah, yeah. So, Paul, maybe we should take a step back and think about exactly, or maybe an overarching definition around AI, because I think people hear AI, they go artificial intelligence, and it applies very broadly to a bunch of things. People are
Hmm.
familiar with things like Chat GPT or other language based type AIs, but there are a bunch of other things out there. So, can you talk a little bit about the category itself, what it really means, and kind of how we should be thinking about that?
Sure, sure. I mean, for me, I like to define artificial intelligence as digital mimicry of human cognition,
Hmm.
right? And it's the Chinese room theory that you could, AI is this, right? You can feed different symbols to someone inside a room with nothing but an instruction manual on how to put those symbols in the right way. And if they follow the instruction manual, as they get fed those symbols, they'll be able to produce a consistently good output, right? So
Hmm.
I tend to simplify AI down to that type of premise. It's really the digital mimicry of our ability to think, right? Our ability to logic and reason. And it's trying as best as it can to do that, right? And when I say it, I mean, I literally mean the computer program, the computer algorithm, that the code itself that was written, right? I mean, nothing more than no physical thinking or creative action. Am I trying to imply on artificial intelligence? I
Hmm.
think that it's a very smart tool. I think the fact that artificial intelligence can learn, right? There's a loop in agentic systems in particular. It's powerful, but it's no different than our own logic, right? And in fact, our logic still prevails, as we know with some certain tests from some of these new GPTs where they hallucinate, right? I mean, they can say things very confidently that are completely wrong. And that's where the human in the loop approach comes in. That's where
Yeah.
bias that we're talking about. And the design is very critical to these systems.
I love how you think about it as a tool, and although I've thought about it that way before, it's even more obvious as we begin to talk about it because there is a difference between having a hammer and being a carpenter.
Hmm.
So I love that analogy because it really does frame really well what AI is currently capable of and a lot of the misconceptions around what it can do, right?
Sure.
But
Hmm.
but when it comes to being able to think about it in terms of businesses, there's lots of information that you have access to as a business owner or a participant in a business, and you don't always have the ability to analyze that data in an effective way. And artificial intelligence can really help us think differently about the data we collect and maybe
Hmm.
analyze it differently than the way we would think about doing it or that we could do even if we had unlimited time.
100%, 100%. And I find myself, in my business, Automations 24, we're built on artificial intelligence, but a unique approach in that we use no code and low code platforms to connect the various forms of artificial intelligence. So you mentioned, under the AI umbrella, there's large language models, there's optical models, there's all kinds of different types of applications. And with solutions like no code and low code, you're connecting in an agile fashion to these different types of solutions. And I like that approach because it gives you not only what you just mentioned, the ability to see something in differently, right, and compress the timing that it takes to get those results. You also give yourself a certain agility that we weren't
Mm.
afforded previously with our decision making, right? And that agility is key in businesses' capability to seize opportunity.
That's a really good thought. I, so I guess I would think. if you have this data available to you, and you have some ability to analyze the data in a way that is maybe better, faster, different than what you would do before, then to your point, you should be able to be more agile. You should be able to respond to things more quickly. But what is the deal with automations that helps you from bridge the gap between actually seeing the data or the pattern and being able to do something with it?
Sure, it's about modular infrastructure, right? If you think of an old business, you kind of think hierarchical, right? And I'm not even sure if I'm saying that right, but you have a CEO, and then it goes down, and you have the CTO, operations officer, maybe a procurement guy, you have finance, and it goes, and then they have folks under him. The structure that AI is affording us to take, that flexibility and that structure of a business means we can change quickly too, right? And automations like no code automations, right, are key in allowing for that interchangeability. So you have that similar modular structure, it's flattened, and now you can basically say, okay, tool ChatGPT has now been replaced by Perplexity because Perplexity is $20 cheaper a month. You can make that decision with minimal training of the model, right? And
Mm,
you think about changing a business in the past. The business lifespan on companies on the S&P 500 was something like 60 years long, right? A business would survive for 60 years up until 10 years ago, and now it's 18 years, right? And I bet it's going to be smaller and smaller because of companies that were built in this really rigid structure where processes are human oriented. Not a bad thing, right?
yeah.
But it's harder to change my habits than it is an algorithm's habits, right? And it becomes even harder when you have that algorithm hard typed in. So no code, low code solutions, automation is key because you kind of take that hard typing in and you
Hmm.
remove that capability. You make the connection between these apps that much more seamless and fast, right?
Oh, that okay. So that's starting to make sense. So, let's apply it then to something that maybe I would be familiar with, the audience would be familiar with, um, like pharmacies, as an
Hmm.
example. So, in a lot of states today, you have a CSR, which is a registration for controlled substances, and
Hmm.
it's designed to take a patient who may be prescribed a controlled substance in Office A, and they go to fill that prescription, then they go to Office B and they get prescribed again. It's
Yep.
designed to help keep them from getting it filled in the second office, right?
Hmm.
And there is a regular data driven approach to that, right? You can make a database and you could say that this is a patient and here's their name, here's the stuff they got from over here, and you could database it out. But you could also use artificial intelligence to help predict when those things would be
Sure.
happening. And you could look at the frequency, locations, and other pieces of that data to figure out where people might be shopping for medications, or doctors who may be actually helping patients do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it's a really interesting thing to think about that way.
Yeah. No, and it's being used in a very similar way for marketing. Right. I
Mm,
mean, you think about I do work as a CXO for a beverage organization, and basically they use the same logic to market to certain geo-fenced locations uh, where they know they have their beverage in the store, right? And they're going to send just 10-mile radius where that beverage is. They're going to send the ads just to that spot, right? So it's very honed in, and I believe it. And the predictive nature of it is really cool. But that's where you really have to be. We as the users have to be incredibly cognizant
hmm.
of the decisions that we're allowing the tool to make on our behalf, right? Because you don't want to, unfair is not the word, but you don't want to have that bias where you're not allowing someone access to something they really need, right?
That's
Which
right.
is the
That's
opposite
right.
problem.
That's right. And that does go back to the earlier conversation around the ethics of it all, right?
Hmm.
And so you have to figure out how to balance getting good outcomes
Hmm.
versus doing it and ignoring all of the negatives that happen because it's an incomplete model or there are other things to consider or the human side is eliminated, which there's always that gray that humans tend to have about situational things, and you can eliminate that using AI, but not to
Hmm.
the benefit of anyone.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. It's a well, it's an interesting problem to have with the tool because I think it's a new issue, right?
Mm,
Where we have uh, something trying to mimic our logic and rational capabilities enough, and we are confident enough in what we're doing and how we construct it that it's that much more paramount to be strategic about it. And I think it's hard to do that today because everybody's a guru. It's such a new technology, and I'm not a guru. Don't get me wrong, right? I know enough to be dangerous, right? But when you're surrounded by that, it's really easy to make bad decisions with the tool too. So you have these companies that are going to be backstepping on certain AI implementations, and part of the reason it's going to be stopped is not because of the tool, but it's mostly going to be because the human part of it, right? And what we
yeah.
weren't able to capture in the rigidity of our process, in the bias that we've accidentally inserted into the way we're using the tool, right? It's really wild, and I can talk from experience. Just some of the talking again beverage advertising is a strict market with beverages that and we have to be very keen on how we're marketing, but we're still trying to sidestep it too. Don't get me wrong. There's rules, and then there's rules that every company is slowly sliding under
Mm,
the radar with, right? So how do you tackle that, right? How do you ensure
right.
it? Well, you have conversations like we're having right now.
Yeah. Do you, if I am thinking, say I'm in a small to medium sized company or organization, and I am thinking I'm missing the boat. I am not implementing any tools that could be helping the business. How do you start to think about that as far as what is my first step when I'm thinking, man, I really feel like I'm missing out, but I don't know where to start?
But business is about making money, right? I mean,
Ultimately.
bottom line, you have to put food on the table. You got to make money. So I always start with, even myself. I mean, I try to remind myself all the time, uh, where are you making your money? What action are you taking that's making that money, that's facilitating that transaction? Is it the consulting you do as a small business owner? Is it the bouquet you make as a flower shop manager, right? What is it that's really delivering the value that the customers are willing to pay for? And I'll tell you, somebody said this to me. The moment somebody buys something from you as a business owner, they love you more than the Beatles, right? Especially if you're like they want you. They're handing you money. You should be proud of that, right? So
Yeah.
you as a business owner should do more of that. So what do you need to do more of to make more money, right? From a business perspective. And then there's the other side of it. Well, if you're a business owner, you surely aren't, and some people are crazy, don't get me wrong. I like working, right? But surely you're not trying to work yourself into the ground, you know? You would like to work for the opportunity to have some leisure in the future. And so I always go, okay, well, what are you doing? First, what do you do that makes money? Two, what are you doing that you have to do that sucks? And you're doing way too much of
Oh,
it, right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
those two things are huge. Well, they both end up being pain points, as you go through the process, finding out. We work with the e-commerce group that sells garage storage solutions, right? And
Okay.
we go through the process of automating their business really, and we find out that there's a lot of activity that they do that isn't, it's just kind of busy work, and it's nothing against the company. It's just what they've done to satisfy the status quo.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
once you kind of bring these things to light, a whole nother world opens up to where the individual, the companies are going, okay, well, it's more than a tool, it's a mind frame adjustment, right? It's what were we doing in our process that was absolutely not needed. For me, it came easy because automotive is like process galore, right? And not as not anywhere near medical, I'm sure, but you have a certain parts per minute you have to make, and quality is paramount, right?
That's right.
And those processes I leaned on as a buyer to save my ass 100,000 times, right? And then as an independent business owner, I hate them, yeah, right? Because they stifle decision making, they slow innovation, and they serve as excuses for people like me in the corporate world.
Yeah, I mean, but but those processes are the pieces that I think are always the challenge. What no matter
Hmm.
what the industry is, because there are certain expectations around the things that should or must be done,
Yep.
and it's very difficult to challenge those expectations because it's ingrained, right? And so it
Hmm.
goes back to you saying a minute ago, which I didn't know. This is a new fun fact for me now that the average company was 60 years until
Yeah.
10 years ago, because 60 years is probably sometime around the working lifespan of the founder and
Sure.
their immediate successor, right?
Yep.
Um, and so, I mean, that's an interesting thing to think about because that would be when you would either need to make process changes to break what was done in
Hmm.
the founding of the business, or you don't do that and the business just doesn't get to survive. And so I think identifying those things in the process that need to change are the things that are hardest for people to do.
Yeah, well, 100%. And I mean, you brought up a really interesting point, and I'm probably going to go down a terrible rabbit hole later. Thank you very much for this. But no, no, the I've been interested in secession of family-owned private equity companies, right? What that secession planning looks like, and I've done some really high level, reading of the literature on it, and you're exactly right. Companies used to plan for secession, and they used to keep it as much as possible in family. And boards plan for secession today. It happens, but the willingness of the family member today to take on that business, it's not there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not it's a different mentality that we have to deal with too, and that goes back to my flexibility comment, right? I think where things are going 5 years from now, it could be very, very flexible, right? Our technical stacks should be very, very flexible and almost tailored to us as individuals, just like our PC is, but with these different AI that have learned from us that are now ingrained in those. I think it's an opportunity for us.
That's interesting to think about too. So, so let's recount for a second. If we're thinking about implementation of AI for the very first time, I love the fact of looking at the things that earn you money and the things that are pain points, because those either one has processes attached, and those
Hmm.
processes may be able to have improvement. Then staying flexible is really, really important, and I think the flexibility comes in to examining your processes, because if you are very rigid in the way you think things have to be done, then it can make it very, very
Hmm.
difficult to even lean on AI to help you get to a different place.
Hmm.
And so now we've thought about our problems, we've thought about our process, we've now know we have to be flexible. What's next? What do we do?
Oh, you run into the wall 100 times. No, but you have to experiment, right? And it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's so much out there that you really you won't get wet without sticking your feet in. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
have to start to use some of these tools as a part of your process, even if it's a small part, right? And you may find out it's wrong, and you got to be okay to pivot from it too, right? And seek a different solution. The key here, and I didn't like this word when I was in automotive, but it's continuous improvement. The key is to look at
Oh,
your processes continually
yeah,
and revisit it and think of ways to do it different, right? And that's where AI is an accelerator. It's not necessarily doing it for us. You know, people have that misconception that if I get AI, it's going to be done. But no, you know, the where do you start? You start by making the change, right? Now we're talking about not technology, but change management.
right, right. So you've literally though written the book on this, like thinking about this, right? And so talk to me a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so I wrote Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine for small and medium business owners because as I dove deep into my own entrepreneurial journey, you know, I realized a few things. One, I'm not going to be good at everything that my company needs me to do, right? And so I needed to find, and that happened very fast, right?
Hmm.
Faster than I'd like to admit, you know. But two is okay. Well, I got to find people who can do that better. I need to stop being a micromanager. You know, I need to self-reflect and change my own attitude, right? And what it did was it led me down this journey of okay, there's tools out there available to us for zero cost, open
Hmm.
source, right? The code is available, and I'm savvy. The feather that I put in my cap through my career has been digital process improvement, but internally for these companies, really.
Hmm.
And let's learn these tools. Let's find out, are they really accessible? Are they really that easy to use? So I basically structured my organization with the 10 recommended tools in this book. And the book is giving advice to small business owners or you know, startups right now on how to look at AI and how to start practicing, you know, playing with these tools and where they could possibly get their biggest bang for the $0, right away.
Yeah, yeah. Um, where do people find the book, and where do they learn more about you?
The book is on Amazon, Unleashing the AI Cash Flow Machine. You can also find it at Barnes and Noble online. I think they put one copy in Alaska to satisfy me for it's 1,000 requests or something. I'm speculating about that, but it ended up on their website, so I'm happy about that. And then I can be found at automations24.com or on LinkedIn. My name, Paul Malott, one L, two T's.
That's awesome. So Paul, we have seen AI move fairly quickly, or at least we perceive it to move and change fairly quickly. As we look forward over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, do you have a crystal ball? Do you see some things out there that we should be thinking about or aware of or on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all in on it with my company, and it's automations, right? No code, low code, automation, personal tech stacks. You mentioned a database, right? I believe the future is going to be built on database, low code, no code, and user interface
Mm,
because the amount of niche tools that are going to be in that middle layer are going to it's just going to compound, right? It's so many that we are going to have it's going to be a must to have that flexibility to go subscribers, you know, membership database, whatever we need in the middle to make it happen, and however our customers are going to get a hold of us. That's 5 years from now, right? This model context protocol is already playing in that middle layer to enhance the communications between the different systems too, right? By keeping them
yeah.
by keeping them in line to your organization's belief. And think about that. People who are 10 times more driven than me, 10 times smarter than me, are going to use these tools and they're going to create mini thems, you know? And we're
Yeah.
going to see some really cool shit.
Well,
I don't know what it could be, but it's going to be awesome. I know that.
if nothing else but communication between systems,
Hmm.
then that's a huge step forward, right? Because
Yes.
we continue to have all of these different systems that run things, and they do it very well, but they don't communicate with each other in a
Hmm.
way that's seamless. I mean, even when you think about typical consumer stuff, like going to a online version of a big retailer, often their retail systems are different than their online systems, and the two
Hmm.
don't always communicate together in a way that's effective for the customer or the consumer, right? And
Yep.
so we've all had the experience where you buy something online, you can't take it back to the store because they don't know what to do with it, because it's not actually the stuff that they deal with, right? And
Yep.
so having this concept of, I can do something over here in this place, and the system can communicate with a different system that's over here in that place.
Hmm.
That actually is pretty exciting for me, because it feels like I get a whole nother experience personally,
Yeah.
out there with the things that I do every day.
Yeah, no, and your example is absolutely perfect. Almost all enterprises, and this is rigidity, right? When you have systems that 500 systems. I just talked to a bank that said they have 500 different service level agreements. That's 500 different for software, right? That's
Wow.
500 different niche types of software they needed for a specific problem somewhere. And that is silo, right? That's silo heaven for whomever enjoys silos in businesses. But no code right now, and these are companies, by the way, that are now like Lovable, Make.com, Replit, these vibe coding, these no code solutions, these platforms that are automating, their value on the market is higher than traditional SaaS, right? So I think we're
Mm.
being signaled that this change is going to happen. And imagine now the power that can come with not having to clean data just to feed it to another system for that system to pursue its purpose, you know?
And you've got me kind of excited about this whole prospect, because
Hallelujah. Then I did my job. That's why I got on
man,
here, man. I'm excited about this.
because I'm thinking about all the things that can come of it that make life more adventurous, a little bit easier, the cool side effects, and
Yeah.
then secretly I'm thinking about how you get all these systems that are in cars to talk to them, to talk to each other, and then how do you get the cars to talk to one car to talk to another car about it, and all of the things that kind of go that we could go along with, right? And so this is pretty cool stuff.
No, I think where I was at in my last automotive career, and the heads up augmented head reality heads up display. The idea there is that this car is going to be a mobile entertainment system.
Mm,
I I like the cars for the vroom vroom, the big ass engines, and the smell of racing fuel.
yeah.
And I don't hate electric vehicles. Don't get me wrong, but to me, a car is like a Corvette, right? An engine. There's something there, but yes, think about technology now ingrained in all of that, right? We are going to have some really cool toys,
Yeah, yeah.
if anything.
Well, Paul, I gotta thank you for spending some time with me. This has been absolutely incredible.
Hey,
Um,
pleasure's all
I
mine. Thank you.
I'm gonna have lots of questions, and so I'll follow up with you, because I mean, I think we could take little pieces of this and have huge conversations, and of course, we could talk cars for probably days. We won't do that for
Yeah.
everybody listening, but we could. So, thanks again for spending the time, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
If you've made it this far, then I have to thank you for your time. I hope you've learned something new and enjoyed listening to the discussion as much as I enjoyed having it. I'd love to hear from you about the show, because we're working really hard to bring you great content, and the feedback really helps us get better. If you like what you've heard or watched, for those of you who are streaming out on YouTube, then take a split second to give us a thumbs up or a like. It really helps other people like you find the show too. And no one likes to miss out on the good stuff, so go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't have to wonder when or if there's a new episode. And until next time, stay remarkable.